Hi, my name is Bella Carrasco, and helping others feel confident about investing brings a huge smile to my face. After working in the private equity, family office, and securities markets for nearly a decade, I am breaking down the world of money, investing, and financial freedom. Work optionality isn't a dream, it's a decision you make today. I bring you actionable tips, expert interviews, and enlightening strategies to help you get richer and stay that way. This is the How Do You Know podcast. And this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Please consult with a qualified financial professional for advice specific to your situation. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast producers or sponsors. We make no representations or warranties regarding the accuracy or completeness of the content. Today, we are speaking with Michael, and this episode is focused on making financial tactics used by professionals accessible to everyone, which is typically defined as some sort of financial literacy. You hear that word tossed around a lot, but it is just the start. And so today, Michael will take us deeper into why financial consciousness is what really builds confidence. So, Michael, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Michael, you spent over 15 years in the financial services industry and co-founded RetireUS, which makes financial planning more accessible not only to the ultra high net worth, but to those that do have net worths of under 30 million as well, who definitely benefit from planning of this nature. And as I mentioned earlier, financial literacy is a great starting point, but what do most people get wrong about that concept?
Financial literacy, I think that's the best way to think about it, right? Financial literacy, the starting point is actually we're unconsciously incompetent, right? We don't know what we don't know, and we're just kind of rolling through life with the habits that we were born, through the indoctrination of just life in general, and the habits we're taught from, our family and our friends, and our relationship with money just kind of is created over time, and we're navigating unconsciously incompetent. We don't know what we don't know, and we're just kind of going through it. And then generally there's this spark for financial literacy, which is kind of the first step. Well, I want to start to educate myself. I want to start to learn a little bit more about what are the different tools and techniques, and what are these things that I need to start to really understand how the financial system works, right? And how I can make it work for me. And so it's kind of that first step of knowledge, right? Knowledge is power when it comes to investing and building wealth. Financial consciousness is taking it kind of a next step. So literacy is the foundation, right? It's having a good grasp of what's going on, and consciousness is taking it to that next level of, well, how does it actually all really truly work in the industry? How does it impact me? How do I actually apply these concepts to my own life and personalize it, right? And make it something that is allows me to take action with intent for a purpose, right? Kind of finding the why behind the decision making that we do with our money.
I think that's a huge point that's always missed because a lot of people just rely on financial advisors or third parties to just make this roadmap with for them without checking in with themselves. And I think checking in with what you want along with that mindset is something that is a step that's missed but also very important. And I know you just mentioned tools. So do you have a tool you use with clients that people can start implementing?
Yeah, we actually we do have a tool. We built a tool to help kind of raise the first level of financial awareness, and we call it a financial checkpoint. And what this does, it's about a 4 to 5 minute quiz. It's really simple. Go to retire.us and you can take it for free. And it's really meant to pull out the blind spots. So what it does is it will assess your tax planning, your retirement planning, your overall risks, and then it will pull out these different, we call them financial red flags. And
Mm-hmm.
these are the blind spots. These are the areas that we are unconsciously incompetent about currently, and we're going to bring them into our awareness. So generally the red flags are the things that are actually getting in your way of achieving, more and more financial success, whether that's just from an effectiveness standpoint or an efficiency standpoint. it's these areas that once we become more aware of them, then we're able to kind of see the path a little clearer, and we can make decisions that have more of kind of like a multiplying effect, right? Something that will really amplify every dollar that we're saving, or every dollar that we're investing, because we have more purpose for the money itself. So that's a really great tool if you really want to start getting some awareness. It's about kind of pulling out those things that we don't yet know are really there.
That's brilliant. And it's a free tool, so why not just try it? What are some typical red flags that you see? Is there a common theme with folks that you work with?
Yeah, there is. It generally goes down two major paths, which is basic foundational starting points for retirement. And the second path is tax planning. So those are kind of the two
Mm,
areas where most people just don't have a ton of awareness.
yeah.
We all have our retirement accounts or our 401k, and that's great, right? That kind of checks the literacy box. We know we need a retirement account. We have one through the workplace, or we have our IRA. We know we need to save, and it's good, and it feels like we're doing everything that we need to be. But the reality is most people don't know what they actually need from that retirement account. The biggest red flag for retirees, or for people that are starting to plan for retirement, is they actually don't know how much retirement's going to cost, and they don't know how much they're going to
Mm,
need to have saved in that 401k or in that IRA over time. And if you don't have that information, it's impossible to know if your investments are appropriate, if you're actually taking the right net level of risk, if you're actually targeting the right level of return, right? If you're saving enough into those accounts. All those decisions really should be being made with the end goal in mind. And so most people are just kind of arbitrarily doing it. So
mhm.
that's kind of one of the biggest ones on the foundational side. On the tax side, almost everybody has long-term tax liabilities that they're just really not aware of the implications of the retirement account. So, have you ever heard of required minimum distributions? Are you familiar with that term?
The good old RMDs.
The good old RMDs. The required minimum distributions is the biggest con that the IRS has ever played, and the IRS is the master at the long con. And most people have no idea
Yeah.
what is about to happen with the retirement accounts. And what, for the audience, if you're not familiar, require minimum distributions is basically a stipulation in your pre-tax retirement accounts that says once you hit age 73, you have to take withdrawals, and you have to pay income tax on those withdrawals. And most people's logic is, well, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, right? Oh, my
Mm,
my income is going to be much lower. And surface level, that may feel true, but for most people, what ends up happening is Social Security turns on. Generally, for a lot of people, especially the boomers right now, have other pension income or other sources of income, whether that's real estate, rental income. Sometimes people are working part time, and then the required minimum distribution is on top of all that income, and that percentage increases every year. So it's not at 73 when it's an issue; it's at 85, 90 when that required minimum distribution keeps building and building and building, and it just pushes people into higher and higher and higher tax brackets. Because and then once it's started, like once that faucet is on,
yeah.
it's really tough to get out of it. So the IRS has played the long game. You can defer your taxes for 30 plus years, 40 plus years in this retirement account, but they will get it. That's
Does
sure.
that apply to Roth as well, since you're paying taxes right now instead of later?
Great question. So the Roth is the
Okay.
secret to avoid it. And
Okay.
what you can do, and what people, it's a very nuanced strategy, but if you don't see yourself needing to touch a ton of your retirement assets, the problem really comes for anybody that's getting to retirement. We been in this industry for 15 years. You see people retire, and then they barely need to touch their retirement savings. So they have all this money in tax deferred pre-tax positions, but then retirement comes, Social Security ends up being more than they expected, their expenses end up being less than they expected, and they're just touching a really small percentage of their retirement account. Most of it they're never going to use in their retirement, but the problem is that ramification continues to compound. And because they're barely touching it, the assets continue to grow, right? So they're
Yeah.
really only scratching the surface. And then those required minimum distributions kick in. And so what you can do is, if you're really ahead of it, is you can start converting to Roth. So you
Okay.
can actually consciously say, all right, you know what, I'm going to pay some of the taxes on this now, but move it over into a tax shelter so it'll never be subject to required minimum distributions again. And that's the biggest red flag that most people just are not aware of. And unfortunately, they don't
Yeah.
become aware of it until required minimum distributions is like a year or two away. And then they're like, wait a minute, I
Yeah.
got to start taking. And then at that point, it's not that it's too late, but it's so much more challenging to do those
Mm,
conversions and get the money out into the tax shelter. So again, this is consciousness. This is financial consciousness. It's like the understanding that what a required minimum distribution is, or how IRAs are going to be taxed. That's good literacy. The consciousness is, well, how is this actually going to continually evolve and impact me? How is
right.
this something that I can be proactive about if I'm consciously making decisions of where I'm saving, if I'm saving into Roth versus pre-tax, right? It's going to have a huge implication long terms. And so this is where that kind of starts to separate out. It's just understanding truly the bigger picture of how this stuff all really works and impacts you.
Right. I was going to say that it's so unfortunate that so many people don't know about the required minimum distribution. It's probably buried in the terms and conditions that no one likes to read.
Yeah.
But it is nice to know that even if you are 2 years away and you think that there's all hope is lost, it sounds like there are still some strategies to help mitigate against required minimum distribution. One sounds like you can convert it to a Roth even down the line. Is there any other quick tip that people can implement?
I mean, that's the biggest thing, is
Okay.
that one of the new laws that came through recently is also in the 401k. A lot of times there's Roth components in the 401k, and now you can actually take advantage of employer matches through the Roth component. So before, that was
Yeah.
only a traditional IRA thing. You're going to need to pay the taxes on on the matched component, but you can actually take advantage of that purely in Roth. So most people think that in order to get the match, they have to do the traditional, and they're
Right.
maxing their 401k contributions because they think that they're going to be in a lower tax bracket in the future. But one of the things that most people are not truly aware of is we're in one of the lowest tax rate environments in US history now. So some of
Uh-huh.
the marginal tax brackets and the way that they work are some of the lowest actually in history. Whereas, the highest earners back in the, pre 80s, I mean, some of those tax brackets were upwards of 90% for the highest,
Yeah.
band of your income.
Wow.
And so we're actually, and debt's at an all-time high, right? There's need for tax revenue. So it's likely, right, we don't have a crystal ball, but it's likely tax rates and tax implications will probably change over time in the future. And if we're in one of the lowest tax rate environments now in
Yeah.
US history, it's likely they're probably going to increase. So it's not as simple as it looks on the surface a lot of times when we think about tax planning. And so I always encourage everybody to just take a look at it. You can basically kind of model this stuff out, right? You can forecast out, if I change nothing, you know,
Hmm.
what are my investments going to grow to? What will they be at required minimum distributions? What are those going to look like as time goes by? And then you can start to kind of make more conscious decisions with the now.
Hi, I want to interrupt for a quick second because I am a big believer in emulating off of who you want to be. And I've gone through Christopher's program at Wealth Ops, where he truly gives you the education you need to help you manage wealth like a microfamily office. I encourage you to take a second to read his article or visit his website at wealthops.io, that will be linked as well. Okay, thanks. Back to it. Right. And me being in real estate for 10 years now, I feel like my brain is wired to focus on tax efficiency because one of the benefits of real estate is all of the tax benefits that comes with it. So I am
Absolutely.
always shocked and floored when people don't even know what a 1031 exchange is, which is essentially defers your tax payments. And most people should know what compounding is, but it just essentially your growth can grow exponentially with the ability to keep more money in your pocket instead of paying taxes, which is money you will never see again. Instead, if you do implement some sort of tax efficiency, that means you can keep more in your pocket, whether you save it or invest it into something else that will allow you to compound and grow your wealth even more. So I love that red flag because tax planning is definitely something I love to bring to people's attention.
The 1031 is such a good tool. A swap until you drop is the phrase that I've always
Yeah.
heard, where you just continue to swap it because you get the step up in cost basis for the beneficiary. So a lot of
Yeah.
these really savvy investors in real estate will just 1031 their properties as they flip them. They get into a new and like keep that cost basis so low until they pass it down to beneficiaries, and then that cost basis steps up to the current value, and boom, you just circumvented years and years of capital gains tax in just by being conscious, right? So
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's, the consciousness is all about how can we use the tools. Literacy is like, what is the tool? What's a hammer? What's a nail? Right? Did we know that we can actually use the hammer to pull out nails as well as hammer them in, right? And we start to become more and more conscious of the actual tools that we have at our disposal. That's what a lot of, taking this stuff to the next level when we think of financial wellness and financial consciousness is really about. Yeah, so the 1031s, a lot of people also don't know that in 1031s you can leverage specific passive real estate investments too. Most
Yep.
people would leverage that solely with like physical real estate that they would need to manage, or they would need to, bring on a property manager. But there's ways that you can leverage things like DSTs. Have you stepped into that space a
I
little bit?
I was just about to say I'm about to nerd out on some
Yeah.
DST and 721 UPREIT because not
Yep.
only can your heirs, well, sometimes it can be messy if heirs receive the step up in basis. Maybe a sister wants to stay in the real estate,
Bro,
but
yeah.
the brother doesn't want to have to do anything with it anymore. And so these new structures like the DSTs or the 721 UPREITs allow you to either go into a passive investment like you said, so the tenants' toilets and trash don't go away. You just outsource that to someone who lives and breathes that every day.
Yep.
But also, you have this ability to then have a semi liquid investment where you can choose to sell off some of it. Of course, if you do that, you'll have to pay the capital gains. But for those that want to stay in it, it's a beautiful tool to still allow someone to participate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's one of those things where tax consciousness is tough. It's challenging to stay on top of because
Yeah.
every single year things change, and all of a sudden things that were strategies we could use forever
Yeah.
disappear, and then new administration comes in, they come back, and it's tough. That's why having a good professional, somebody that this is what they, live and breathe daily, weekly, is just so valuable. And in my opinion, having professionals like that at your
Yeah.
disposal pay for themselves 10 times over because
Oh,
of
yeah.
these subtle nuanced things can make a massive difference in efficiency, right? At the end of the day, the IRS is going to get their money some way to some extent. But if you're just unconsciously going through the motions of how you've always kind of done it without really strategically thinking through it or leveraging some of these other resources, it's very likely you will pay more than you need to over time.
Yep. Right.
And
Exactly.
that's the name of it's a game. That's the name of the game, right? We say that for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, it's a game. The IRS, there's rules. The IRS is on one side and they're trying to get as much money from your
Yeah.
money as possible. And on the other side, we're allowed to try to minimize that as
Yeah.
much as possible, right? Within the rules. And
Exactly.
that's the game that we play every single year when you're in this business for real.
Yep. So here's the game. Are you ready to play?
Yeah, let's shuffle up and deal. And
Yeah.
the hard part is that the IRS controls the rules, really, right? At the end of the
Yep.
day, like, they're on the side where the rules are, and they change the rules every year.
Yep.
So it's challenging. It's a very challenging game to play. But the people that are the ultra successful and the masters of financials and wealth, this is where they focus a lot of their time and attention, because
Hmm.
especially when you start to increase the account value and volume, these decisions have major implications over
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So
And I like to think of it as I am the CEO of my investment portfolio. That means I want to be working on the business, not in the business,
yep.
meaning there is no way that I can be a jack of all trades and keep up with the tax law and this law and that law. But I can hire people to do that for me who will breathe it day in and day out. They are the true experts in that to make sure that I am taking advantage of everything possible. And of course, you want to make sure that you're revisiting that frequently just to make sure everything's aligned. And sometimes you have to fire some people because they might not be doing their job. But if you're regularly visiting that, then that's being a good, true CEO of your investment portfolio.
It's such a good way to look at it, and that's the objective of the Retire US platform, is creating space for anybody to be able
Mm-hmm.
to start to have that relationship with their own finances and bring on the resources that they need without it costing thousands and thousands of dollars, or having to have, hundreds or millions, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to get access to those types of professionals and
Yeah.
guides, because there's a reason the CEO does not also run all the operations in a company, run all the marketing,
Yeah.
run, all of the sales. They may dabble in some areas, and they're generally bringing in the people to support those key functions of the business, because those are the people that are regularly working in the business. And the CEO's job really is to work on the business. And how often does the average American approach their finances that way, right?
Yeah.
Generally, we're only operating in the business, which is we're in the day to day. We're just trying to budget. We're just trying to save as much as we can, pay our bills and invest the difference. And unfortunately, if that's the way that you're operating, you're just going to miss a ton of opportunities
Mm-hmm.
to improve and make it
Yep.
easier over time.
Exactly. And before we veer off too much away from this real estate topic, I do want to bring that the difference between a fiduciary and then just a regular financial planner. So that's part one of my question. And then part two is, do you think fiduciaries are more adept to incorporate some type of real estate in a client's portfolio? Because my biggest gripe with planners is they're usually putting people into products that they earn commissions on, or it's more cookie cutter and not necessarily tailored to someone's portfolio itself. Whereas if you look at the ultra high net worth portfolios, there is some sort of real estate on it. But because they don't earn commissions on it, sometimes there's that friction
Yeah,
between
conflict
a
of
real
interest,
estate.
really.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the purpose of the fiduciary, is to eliminate that conflict of interest and give a little bit more of a broader approach. If your financial advisor is spending all of their time on reviewing investments, you're missing 50% of the equation. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because investments should be a result of a much larger system. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. About 85% of licensed financial professionals are product professionals, right? They're non
Yeah.
fiduciary, they're compensated only on product. And most of those professionals are actually tied to specific products based off of the institutions that they represent, right? They don't
Yep.
necessarily work for you, they work for an investment institution and then are advising you based off of the products that exist in that investment institution's ecosystem. And
Right.
so you see that a lot. It is the norm. It's a major reason why we've built the Retire US platform, is because independent fiduciary planning really takes a systems first approach, which we're looking at all of the facets of your financial situation. Well, the professionals are.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing is they're building, intricate systems to make sure your cash flow, your investments are operating in terms of a much larger picture, like taxes, like retirement, like legacy planning. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, incorporating real estate into that as an asset class is important. It's a key factor and it's a differentiator, undoubtedly, when you're working with fiduciary planners, where most people are working with investment advisors or financial advisors that don't really have that planning fiduciary lens and perspective on their approach.
So if you're interviewing a financial planner, ask if they are a fiduciary.
Yeah, you want fiduciary. Fiduciary is a good buzzword, it's a good keyword, but really what you want is independent fiduciary because somebody can be a fiduciary. Fiduciary just means they're making recommendations and guidance that's legally has to be in your best interest. But the case
Okay.
can be made that they're doing it in your best interest, but if their scope is limited, they can still make the case that they're doing it in your best interest, right?
Got it.
Because they can only operate within the ecosystem that they can, right? Like that's just how it works. So you really want an independent fiduciary because independent comes with an open architecture as well, meaning they're not tied to an institution. They can vet the entire marketplace and they generally will give guidance across multiple industries. So not just securities, which is generally where your portfolios come through, then they're talking about banking, they're talking about insurances, they're talking about real estate, right? There's more layers to the perspective that they're bringing to the table because they're not tied to anything. They're independent and they have open architecture. So those are kind of the three buzzwords I would think about: fiduciary, independent, and open architecture. All the key things you really want to look for.
Perfect. No, those are very helpful tips because it can be very confusing and convoluted in that industry. So appreciate those three keywords.
Yeah, I mean that's the again, like this is part of this push for consciousness, right? It's how
Yeah.
does it actually all work? Understanding the industry where you're seeking the advice is half the battle
Right.
because it's really not built for most Americans to get high quality advice that is absolutely in their best interest. That is not how the industry is designed. So you have to have a high level of consciousness and understanding and discernment when you're looking to work with a financial professional. Otherwise, it's very, very likely that there's going to be some heavy conflicts of interest that are entered into the equation that are just unavoidable because of the way the industry is structured.
So then this prompts me to ask, how do you help your clients go from financial literacy to financial consciousness?
It's all about getting clarity and organized, right? There's a process that we follow, and first and foremost, it's connecting users with independent fiduciary planners that have an open architecture. So the first step is giving people access to somebody that can look at this from the widest perspective possible,
Mm-hmm.
and doing that without any asset minimums. Instead, we charge a flat subscription ranging anywhere from $60 a month to $150 a month. So it's very reasonable. If you wanted to work with an
Yeah.
independent fiduciary and pay them to just do planning for you, the industry standard would be charging anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a year as a retainer out of pocket. So the platform is meant to give you access to the best. And then, once you are interfacing with that professional, we're going through this process of understanding the bigger picture first. So it's what is the vision? What are we actually looking to accomplish? And we're actually starting really at the end. So as we have to define the vision, and you'll essentially work through the tech that we have to help understand and put pen to paper a little bit for starting to draw some lines in the sand of where are we really headed, what are we actually planning for, and then we have to take inventory of where we are, right? So it's let's draw some lines, let's take inventory of where we are now, and now let's compare that, right? Where are we in relation to where we want to wind up?
Yep.
Now we can start, now we have something to truly look at and see, okay, analytically this is the path that we're headed down, but you say we want to go over here, right? If we change nothing, you will retire at X age with X amount of dollars, but you said you really want to achieve Y. So now let's start to build out a different roadmap. And that's really what's happening. And it's taking this stage of where do you want to go, where are you right now, and then the consciousness is basically kind of putting those two together, right? Being able
Yeah.
to merge the two of those to understand why we're making the financial decisions we do every week, month, year, and what we should be doing, right? What we should be aware of, or what we do need from our savings, or our overall plan in order to consistently be moving towards that vision that we've set for ourselves.
And I'm thinking about the state of the market today, which is full of global uncertainty, which
Right.
is a lot of people are scared right now because of that. Would you say that this framework works in any market?
Yeah, it does. It really does because it's that's you nailed it. It's a framework, right? It's
Mhm.
really in the planning process, the things that we'll talk about first really don't have to do with investments themselves, right? It's actually it's wider than that, right? We want to get into the depth of the investments, but the investments should be the result of the framework that we put together first. And the framework is kind of the same regardless of where we're coming from. It's goals first, right? We need to draw the lines for the goals. We need to set the stage for where are we going, where are we, and what's the path to get there. And then cash flow comes second. Cash flow is all about efficiency. But we need to know where we're going and what we want before we can prioritize cash flow effectively and create levels of efficiency. So it's the framework really is two key stages: goal planning. Let's align the ships. Where are we going? How do we make sure that we're on course and we're really navigating in the right direction and we're making decisions that constantly move us forward and forward in that direction. Once that's established, then we go over to cash flow. That's stage two. And stage two is how do we create efficiency? How do we speed up the ship, right? How do we get there faster, or how do we
Mhm.
get there with more in our pocket versus, potentially the IRS's bank account?
Right.
And those two things constantly ebb and flow. And so the way that our process operates is we create a cycle. So we start with goals. Once the goals are aligned, then we go to the cash flow. Once the cash flow is aligned, guess what? Markets move, goals change because of inflation, lifestyle changes. So we reevaluate the goals, right? The ship is going to constantly get a little off course and you go back to the goals. And all right, let's line the ship back up. Now we understand what we need to do with all of our other accounts. And then we'll go to cash flow. Let's see if we can speed the ship up. And then that's kind of the routine, the rhythm that the platform gets the user in how they interface with the team of professionals.
Yeah, in my conversations, I always say we always wish life would just be this straight line. But whether it's personal or financial, we know that's not the case. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And so, as we were talking about earlier, that's why it's important to revisit it frequently, rebalance it, see what's going on in the greater macroeconomic environment, see if the plan that you have is your ship moving in the right direction. If not, we're going to have to change the sails just a little bit. But having that constant reflection is so important. But it all begins with the planning part. Like, no one's going to care about your money as much as you do. So you have to be able to think for yourself and know what you want for yourself. And that way, those people that you bring in to help you will have a much better picture to be able to help you in the ways that you want.
100%. And that vision, right? Like this is where you can start to see how other asset classes and other ways of investing can kind of start to fit into the equation is being intentional with the vision. So I say, okay, I want to retire at age 50. And at age 50, first of all, if that's your retirement goal, traditional retirement accounts probably aren't going to be the best place because there's stipulations on where to touch that money. 59 and a
Sure.
half, right, is where the average, the typical starting point is without penalty, unless you're being very creative and savvy with how you're leveraging those assets. And so that plan may be very dramatically different. Okay, if we want to retire at age 50, we probably need other investments or other types of assets that are going to produce income. Right? How do you feel about creating real estate or some sort of rental income through real estate, right? And like if that's something that we want to do, it's a totally different trajectory of things that we need to save. We still want to also save into retirement accounts and Roths and all those other things, but being able to look 20 years in the future and say, I want to have a property or two properties or a multifamily or different things that are going to produce income for me. And I want to make sure by that time, the mortgage or the note that's on that property is going to be paid off so that it's just pure cash flow, right? That dramatically shifts how much you're going to need to have saved in retirement accounts or retirement
Yeah.
savings because you have another asset that is an income producer to supplement anything else that's going to be utilized to fund your lifestyle. And so it all has to do with that. The planning comes first. The biggest
Yeah.
mistake we see often, the major like typical mistake that most people make is they think their 401k is a retirement plan. It's a
Mm,
retirement account, right? It's not a plan, right? That nomenclature has confused people because it's called my work retirement plan, right? Or my
mm,
retirement savings plan. But the reality is it's an account. It's
yeah.
not a plan. All it's going to do is give you a place to stash money away and invest that money. But at the end of the day, it's one piece to what needs to be a much larger puzzle. And most people
Yeah.
don't really approach it from that direction. Like I have a retirement plan. No, you don't. You have a 401k. And we don't even know what that 401k needs to do because we lack the line of sight into the future because we don't actually truly have a plan in place.
And in my head, my alarm bells are going off because I'm like, wow, that is so not diversified as to how much it should be. But
Yep,
I'll save that for another day.
exactly.
Well, let's end with my quick 3 question fire round. The first will be, what is your favorite piece of media to stay up to date on the news?
Um, I kind of like YouTube. I think YouTube is great. It gives you a lot of divert. Every single media channel has a YouTube channel now, and I think
Hmm.
for me, it's become a really good place. They do a good job of curating content that's recent um, and like in alignment with what your interests are. So for me, there's a
Sure.
lot of investment focused things, and so you get served a lot of different. I think it's easy to fall into a trap with media where it's like only one perspective.
Yeah.
And I think YouTube does a pretty good job because you can dictate a lot of the feed, and their algorithm is pretty good. So I like YouTube a lot for that stuff.
Yeah, and they have the shorts now too, which is nice. You can
Shorts are
just
great.
get those little clips.
Yeah.
Second question is, what is your favorite restaurant?
Ooh. So it's not even a restaurant, really. It's not even a restaurant. Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia, there is a
Okay.
place called Steve's Prince of Steaks on Comley
Ooh.
Boulevard. It is the best cheesesteak that you can get in the Philadelphia area.
Okay.
And that is one, whenever I'm back in Philly, like I'm always trying my best to make a stop to get a Steve's.
Yes. That's when you know it's good, when you go back and you have to have it.
I got to track it down. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Last question. If you were given $1 million, how would you invest it today?
I would invest it in real estate.
Yeah, I like that answer.
I would think you would, but yeah, I would invest it in real estate. And the reason for that is real estate has traditionally been such a powerhouse asset class, and they're just not making any more of it. Right? There's a reason. The alternative answer and probably like the new age answer, a lot of people might say would be Bitcoin for literally the
Yeah.
same reason though, because of the way that it creates value through scarcity. That's what real estate has always done and will always do. There's going to be more and more humans that populate this earth, and they're not making any more earth. So
Hmm.
the reality is real estate will always appreciate in value by that theory alone of supply and demand, right? Because there's always going to be more and more demand for real estate, and the supply is limited. The supply is
Yep.
limited. So I love real estate as an investment. I have property myself, and the one theme that I have always seen with working with a bunch of high net worth people in my career as a financial planner, back when I was seeing a lot of clients, is real estate was always a piece that everybody
Hmm.
had in that equation. And so that would be the first place. I would give me a good piece of real estate, and then I would start to supplement that real estate with all my other savings, additional savings in your traditional savings places.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah. Not to mention the tax benefits real estate comes with as
Without a
well.
doubt. Yeah.
Well, Michael, thank you so much. Why and how should people reach out to you?
Best way to stay in touch with us is social media, LinkedIn and Instagram at RetireUS. We will be very active on social in the coming months with content, information, tips, tricks, ways to increase your financial consciousness. And then RetireUS is the domain for the platform. We have a free financial mindfulness tier that you can get started with, get access to resources, tools, and that financial checkpoint to kind of pull out some of the different blind spots. And then when you're ready, there's paid tiers that you can jump into, start working with independent fiduciary professionals to help give you that clear path to financial freedom.
Awesome. I hope people know how they can go beyond financial literacy to achieve their version of financial freedom after today. Until next time, adios.
See ya. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you found any value and want to support the podcast, I would be forever grateful if you texted someone the link. You can say that you have a podcast episode that may be interesting for them. Also, if you have questions or topics you want covered, please don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn or Instagram. Remember that every step makes a difference. I hope that you continue to learn how to get richer and stay that way.